All right, I am here with my good friend and co-host, Eloise Stewart. How are you?
I am good. Today is an exciting day. How are
It is
you?
exciting. It is exciting, and I know you and I were looking back when the last podcast we did together, where we kind of do some of these I guess what we call journal entries and updates with our company of every several months or so. But I can't. It's been a while.
It's been a while. And
Well,
well, and a lot has happened. So like where do you even begin? But I do feel like we should begin with saying like congratulations to you because
well,
this week marks what?
yeah, we appreciate it. So yeah, this is the 2 year anniversary of Prewett Pest Control, which is unbelievable. And it's funny when you and I were prepping for this, I mentioned that about 2 years, and you were like, you look shocked, and I'm like, I'm shocked too. Like, I mean, time flies. It's amazing.
Okay, does it feel like it's gone really fast? It's less than 2 years, or does it feel like you've been doing this for forever?
It feels like it's just gone fast. And it's two
Yeah.
years, I guess, from when we technically serviced our very first customer. And so, of course, the process began before that, right? So when we were trying to figure out if this was a business idea we wanted to do and potential partnerships with some others or getting licensed. I remember that whole journey of trying to study and get licensing. And so then forming the LLC. And so I guess we're just kind of going off of when we serviced our very first customer. So that
Because
would
there was
be
at least what, a year, 6 months before then the first customer of so much.
yeah, I think the idea kind of came up in November of what would that have been? Pre-COVID. So it was November before COVID. So what was that, 19?
Yeah.
2019. And then I remember, getting ready to I think I passed my exam maybe, and my first exam for my licensing in like March or so of 20, right when COVID hit. So, and I couldn't go take my test, my exam, because everything was shut down, right? Isn't that crazy?
Weird thought. I do remember the conversations though, the meetings we would have on the phone and Zoom about, okay, well, what is launching this business going to look like? Because there's a lot of unknowns happening right now. But I still remember one conversation that we were having. We were talking about branding, and you were very confident, and we're starting this business this year, even with all these unknowns. We're doing this, which I think gave a lot of confidence also in your team as well.
I think I fooled a lot of people, including myself.
Well, yeah, maybe that's what we do. But I
Blind
do
faith in
remember that.
myself, and I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like once you start down that path, I mean, and I think too, we realized after COVID hit, with our other businesses, and I know other business owners across the world, started pulling things in and starting to prepare for the worst. Because I've never been through a pandemic before. I've been through some recessions and changes like that. And, we've seen that pest control and even insurance, during the last, recession was somewhat resilient to it. And so it kept going, but no one knew
Yeah.
what industries were going to react to. But I
But I
think
do
pretty
think,
early on, we realized that pest control was actually probably going to not fall off and may stay flat or actually probably went up.
yeah. Well, and I think it's too a good lesson or good inspiration to other people who are starting their business in pest industry or wherever, is that don't go into it saying, well, we'll just see how it goes.
Right.
Like it's no, we're doing this. This is the plan. And you did the research, you looked at the data, and you're like, this industry is only, there's only a need growing in this community and elsewhere. So I feel like that's a good reminder to other people. Don't just start a business
Right.
being like, let's just see how it goes, but like actually
That's right.
conviction.
Because I've definitely started a business before, and let's see how it goes. My brother and I, both quit our jobs and said, let's go start buying houses and fixing them up, and we had no idea. We just knew we wanted to be entrepreneurs. And
Yeah.
looking back, it was kind of silly, but it was, I'm glad I did it. But now, as I'm older, much older, more gray hairs, to your point, I think you've got to say, well, here's sort of the plan that we're going to have in place. And, for us, and I've mentioned this before, we were fully committed. We knew we were going to do it, but we always talk about the two different paths. I feel like we had, an opportunity to go down. One was, I was prepared to start, kind of by myself with someone else in a support role to help me, whether it's in all aspects of kind of getting it going, and we kind of grow it conservatively. And we kind of go down that path, and it's me with a truck and a backpack sprayer out there, and then wearing my sales hat, my marketing hat, and all these different hats, and then trying to bring someone on to help me with the servicing or with the right people, bringing the right team members on. I knew it could accelerate quickly. You just don't know what you don't know in a new industry of when you're going to find those people, or if you're going to develop those people. And I've been very fortunate to get connected with those game changers for our for our business to go down that faster path that you couldn't really predict.
Right. Yeah, you found the right people very early on to be able to grow the team a lot faster than you thought. So tell me, like, now we're at year 2, the second year mark. What does the company look like today?
It's pretty cool. We were did a little road trip yesterday down to our Fairhope office and down on the coast, and we were pulling some of our data in the truck, and like, where are we for our like recurring base. And so we measure a lot of our customer base on like how many recurring accounts do we have. We don't count necessarily a one-time service. What are repeat customers, right? And of course, we start off with 0 this time 2 years ago, and now we are just shy of 3,500, right? So 3,500 recurring customers, and most of that, I'd say majority of that is organic, and then another large percentage is the acquisitions we've done, and so third, like. And that may be a similar customer account that we have in our insurance business too. And it's interesting to see how long it took us to get there in the insurance space compared to this. And that's when it kind of hits you. You're like, holy cow, like this is pretty cool,
So that 3,500 is across multiple locations, right? So you could see you acquired one other business or more than one?
Basically one other business, and then a small one that had, probably 100 accounts.
Okay.
So, they were definitely had a, customer base there, but, more of acquiring a customer base as opposed to a company, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So then how would you say what would be the few ways that you feel like you've acquired so many clients in a short amount of time? Outside of the acquisitions and things like that.
Right. It's funny when you first asked me, like, I told you about this idea, and your face probably dropped like everybody else's, right? And like, pest control, what are you doing, you moron? You asked me, what's going to make you different, or some of the basic business questions, right? Like, what's your differentiator, or what are what's your strategy, and why are you going to be different from the guy down the road? And so, well, there's a lot of opportunity for all of us in the pest control because the industry is growing, right? Mm-hmm. And this is not a knock at other companies, but a lot of other companies, if they would just, and I'm not saying just in pest control, I mean just in general small business, right? If they just answer their phone, you'd be amazed at how many times, and we're guilty of that too at times, and have been in the past, where we missed a lot of business because we were shorthanded, didn't have process to even answer the phone in a timely manner or return a call for a day. Yeah. And so if you can set it up, as simple as that sounds, just to answer the phone or reply to a lead quickly, it gives you such a competitive advantage in any business, right? Yeah. I mean, if I'm calling around, to maybe get a new eye doctor, and I call 5 places and 4 of them don't answer, they've missed out on a potential customer. And so, as elementary as that sounds, but that is a big part of what we're doing, because we are marketing, but we're very, very attentive to being available to take that incoming call or an email, a lead that comes in through a Facebook message, or whatever it is.
Whatever way that they're trying to communicate with. That's you, right. Y'all are
monitoring it. And it's funny when we do miss a call, whether it's a current customer or a prospective customer, it's like all hands on deck. Like, everybody knows the urgency, and they're just, because we talk about how hard we try to grow and to miss an opportunity just because we were on the other line with another customer, or maybe, our whole service team or sales team were on the other line. It makes me sick to my stomach when you look at the work you do to try to get a customer, and to know you could call them back even 30 minutes later and they've already called someone else who did a good job and took care of them, but just because we didn't answer,
That's such good advice though, because where you keep thinking about like, we need more customers, whether you're product or service based, and we keep thinking about that, but sometimes we miss out on the ones that are right in front of us who are actually trying to talk
Totally.
and
Totally. And, so going back to your question, a lot of it's done through marketing. It's done through local relationships. Here in Auburn, I think we're just shy of 1,100 customers. Of course, that's all scratched, from 2 years ago, right? With Alexa Wiggins being our very first customer 2 years ago. So we're just under, I think, 1,100 recurring customers in Auburn, and that's all just organic, right? And so that a lot of that has been friends, family, relationships, marketing, whether it be digital marketing or, just branding in the area. And then I think it's taken that, and how can you maximize that new customer? Okay, so what I mean by that is, how can we be very intentional when we do get that new customer? How can we maximize the relationship for retention, maybe for additional services, for referrals? I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
So if we do a really incredible job with that very first customer, from the time we take that phone call to how we do the scheduling, to how we react on the phone, are we courteous, or do we follow up? Do we show up when we say we're going to? All that, and we constantly have to remind our team of that, and I have to remind myself like how important that is. That first experience they have with us, from when they talk to us on the phone to when our service professional shows up at their door, that whole process can then drive additional services down the road, referrals. Their neighbors are seeing our truck in their driveway, and hey, what do you think of Prewett Pest? Oh, they're amazing. They give us dog treats, or they gave us this cool gift as a new client, those kind of things. And so it's maximizing that one touch point in multiple areas. And a lot of times, by human nature, we tend to get a new customer and just move on, right?
Right.
And so this is a way you can do more with less.
I've always thought, and you have the reputation of being great at marketing, but I think even more that what people don't realize is that you understand the importance of branding even more, and how those two play together. And everything that you're talking about is a part of your brand. And I work with so many small businesses who are starting out, and they don't see the importance of that branding and that reputation in the whole customer experience.
Right.
Once you have that customer too, but I feel like that is y'all have done that so well.
Well, we try, and it's ever evolving, right? I mean, we obviously make mistakes every single day, but we try to learn from them. I talked about this with Lee, who's now our president of the company, who's been promoted from director of operations to president, and we can probably talk about that at some point too, that evolution. But talking about really putting everything we do, we think from the customer's point of view, right? And we talked about an example this week. If a customer calls in and says, hey, we've got your mosquito service, but we're getting torn up. We're getting bites. And they said, but hey, we're going to be out of town. No rush, just kind of get here when you can. And, if let's say that's on a Monday, and what's most convenient for us is to schedule it maybe on that Friday. To me, we're doing a disservice if our standard should be, hey, no, we're going to be there within 24 or 48 hours, doing kind of, I don't know, going over and beyond to that customer. Same thing of if a customer calls in and we say, hey, we're going to get back with you, and we don't have an answer to whatever they're calling in for. If we don't call them by the end of the day, at least check in and let them know, hey, we're still working on this. We don't have an answer. Because a lot of times what'll happen is, if I'm working on this issue for a customer and I don't have the answer and it's 5 o'clock, I'm thinking, well, I don't have anything to tell the customer because I haven't solved their problem yet.
Right.
So I may call them the next day. Well, and the customer's thinking, well, he hasn't followed up with me. They don't care, not all customers, but it's a natural that way. And so it's doing those little things, I think, that add up to the whole, and you hit it like with branding, but the whole customer experience from step 1, 2, 3 and on, right?
Right. Right. I think, well, and I think sometimes people think branding is up until you have the customer. And then that's something totally different. It's customer service or whatever. It's like, no, that brand needs to carry all the way through that whole experience that they have with you so that you do get referrals and
Absolutely.
that way. So,
and look, I'm OCD about this, trying to think of from the customer's viewpoint, and I drive my team crazy. I know I do. I have to pick my battles, but it can be as simple as someone goes on Google. They had a good experience with us. We asked for a review. They leave us a review. And you're going to think I'm crazy, but if they go and leave us a really great review, so we respond to every customer, right, and thank them for the review. But let's say they leave us a review and then they kind of move on, and then we don't respond to that for 2 weeks. Does it seem like we had a good, engaging interaction with that customer? They may not even think about it, but in my viewpoint, if I go in and leave a review for a company, and then by the end of the business day, I get a response thanking me for the review and how, letting them know how much they appreciate my business. It's like I'm important to them, right? And how many people or businesses don't even respond to a review to thank the customer for taking time to do it? I mean, it happens all the time, and we've been guilty of it, right? I noticed this morning, we miss responding some reviews on Facebook. It's just sometimes they just slip through the cracks if you don't have a good process or a system in place.
right.
And so I went in to try to go personally. I try to personally thank people for leaving a review, and then the company will do the same. So again, it goes into branding. Branding's not just about a logo or, what's on a logo basically, right? Or what kind of marketing materials we put out. It's the whole experience. I'm sure you've got some insight on that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I tell people all the time. It's the entire experience of how, like, the whole relationship I have with you as a brand, as a business, whatever. But I do think that your point about responding to every review is really important, because those are the types of things that make the difference and is the differentiator for y'all. But it's also for those businesses who are starting out, or those businesses who have a tighter marketing budget. Those are the things that don't cost you anything. That just costs you some time and some effort to respond and say thank you, but it makes a huge difference. So
absolutely,
don't overlook.
We literally just had this conversation through email with one of our team members, talking about engaging, right? How to engage a customer and how important that is. You can take the Facebook experience, right? They leave a review on Facebook. If we don't ever respond, that was a one-way interaction, right? The customer interacting with us, but we didn't engage back, right? And so if we can respond quickly, now all of a sudden we were on their mind once when they sent the review. Now we respond quickly, we're on their mind twice.
Yeah.
Right. And not only that, Facebook changes their algorithm, right? But a lot of times when they do leave a review or recommendation, it can show up in a news feed somewhere else, or someone else can see it. Now all of a sudden 100 other eyeballs, or more or less, are seeing the interaction of what's happening. Yeah. And you don't think about that. And that's part of branding.
Before we move on, there was recently, I can't even remember what company it was, but I was looking up a company and I was looking at their reviews, and there was a negative review, like someone had a negative experience, something happened or whatever. I was so impressed with the company's response to the person that I still use the company. Because they addressed it, they thanked them for it. They didn't make any excuses, and they listed out how they were going to take care of it from then on, and then said that they were going to personally reach out to that person. And because of that, the way they handled that, I was like, I don't think negatively of y'all. Actually, I'm very impressed and want to use you now because of the way they handle that. So,
and I don't care how, and that's funny you mentioned that, because I've got a real life story from this week on that. But it doesn't matter how good of a company, you can be the greatest company in the world. And I'm going to throw out Chick-fil-A because I use them as an example, but they screw up occasionally, right? Or they have a customer that, some customers, can just be, unreasonable, right? And we never try to have that mentality that it's the customer's fault. But I mean, there are people that are unreasonable in this world, and they will leave a review that's silly because of, whatever. But we can't say is silly. I mean, we have to understand, is this something we can fix and make better, or was there what was their perception of, it could have been silly, or it could not have been. It could have been something we could have gotten better. And I think we're over, in our Auburn office, we're close to 500 reviews, Google reviews, that we proactively, manage and get engaged with customers. And it's so funny because we're so adamant on these reviews. When they come in, again, we try to respond quickly. If it's 4 stars or less, our team is so genuinely hurt and concerned. I'm telling you, and it's a culture thing. It is, because I've stressed it from the beginning, and it's not about, hey, we want a perfect 5 star so we can, people see our 5 star. It's like our team. I mean, from Ryan to Lee to Mike to Isaac, Maria. I mean, when these things come in, and it's because we've gotten 2 1-star reviews in the last, I don't know, probably 30 to 60 days. One of them was this week. I saw it come in, and the review was like, the company did great at the first appointment, but since then, there was even some profanity in the review. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, this may be one of those situations where we may have screwed up, or you just don't know.
Right.
Before I don't even have to forward those to my team anymore. I used to forward and be like, hey, let me know what's going on with this. What did we do? What can we do better? When I forwarded it, they had already talked to the customer. I mean, I'm telling you, as soon as it comes in, they're on the phone, like calling, like, what did we do? What can, someone will run out to their house. I mean, they just do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And they were already on top of it, already talked to the customer. And I mean, all of this happened within a few hours of when that initial thing came.
Yeah.
And then I get another notification that the review was changed. So the customer went and changed. Next thing you know, we're at 5 stars, and of course our response publicly was like, genuine, like, hey, we want to fix this. We're reaching out to you. And then he went in and changed it. And that's happened, over the course of the last 2 years. It's been pretty rare, knock on wood, and thank goodness that we get a 4-star or less, particularly a 1-star. But I would say 99% of the time they go and change that, and then they put something, like, to your point, like, I've changed my review. They came in, they made it right. They took care of me. I mean, anyway, I could go on and on about that, but that's part of the culture, and to your point, branding.
Yeah. We always ask the question, if I've ever gotten any kind of feedback, question is, how can we make this never happen again? What do we need to do to make sure it never happens again? Absolutely.
And we can't blame the customer, because the customer has a perception. And so is it something we can fix on our end? Because at the end of the day, if every customer, even if we think we're doing it right, but let's say 9 out of 10 customers have the same perception, it may not be reality, but that's their perception is reality. So how can we fix something on our end to fix that? Yeah. And how can we do the things? Here's the other one, that we talked about this week, kind of along the same lines in a situation was, if something comes in and it looks like we dropped the ball, right? I'll see it and I'll kind of forward it to the appropriate team member. And of course, they're already on it. They're like, I know I've already reached out to the customer. And, my thing is like, whether they drop the ball on our team, I'm like, I don't, I know you didn't do it intentionally, right? But let's not just go fix the problem with the customer and take care of it. Maybe we didn't return a phone call because we missed a voicemail or something, right? And the response usually is like, Rusty, I called them, we took care of it. We're on our way out. We're on top of it. My mentality is like, okay, well, that's sort of table stakes. We need to do that. And our team knows that, and they have that urgency, but is there a system we need to fix, right, to where that could be avoided, right? That's where my mind goes, so it's like, okay, let's go take care of the customer, but is there a process we need to put in place to make sure it doesn't happen again? Or is it just a, kind of a freak thing? Yeah. And that, I love that part of trying to figure out a customer experience. Yeah. Where can we put in processes and systems to try to avoid some of those things, right? Yeah. No, but I also think that it's affecting your culture. You were saying that's just the culture of our team, but the fact that you're like, we're not going to harp on the customer being wrong. We're not going to harp on, oh, we screwed up. We're going to harp on, let's fix it and let's not make it happen again.
and then let's move on. And I think that starts to affect your whole team and your whole culture and everything. So tell me, I want to talk about how your team has grown in the last 2 years. So tell me like what the team looks like now, because I know it's different.
Yeah, it's crazy. Again, starting with myself and one other, 2 years ago and I don't even know the exact count. It's almost like I feel like we're bringing on new team members, like on a not weekly basis, but, almost, I think we're onboarding 2 new team members in the last 2 weeks, again, which is like, how can we put in a new onboarding? We have an onboarding process for new team members, but at some point we need to designate one person to kind of be in charge of the training and the development. What do their first 30 days and 60 days look like in terms of like, who do they need to talk to within the company? Whereas they first started out, it was just Rusty. And then it turned into they're meeting with Lee, and well, now we can't be everywhere. But I want to say I think we have 22, team members, between our 3 locations. We've got some more in the pipeline. So that part has grown for sure. And some really, really solid people. I mean, I would say everybody on our team, I just feel so good about, not that, we don't have challenges, but we have people that are really bought in, and it shows. Yeah. We have our first person going through our development program. So I don't know if we've talked about that in the past with pest control, but you were a big part of creating the Prewett development program for our insurance agency. Yeah. How long ago was that been?
3 or 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
4. Yeah, it might be 4.
So, for those who have not listened to past episodes, Eloise has been an integral part of both of our companies and our branding, and she's a branding specialist. And I mean, you do so many things. I can't even put you in one box, but Eloise really helped take the vision of an employee development program from start to finish. What does it look like to have a career path? She was very integral. If you want to check it out, go to PrewettInsuranceCareers.com, or the new one we have is PrewettPestCareers.com, where we sort of duplicated that. But this was a development program that Eloise, you helped us put together, and it shows where we can hire someone, whether they have industry experience or not, and how they can go down a path of development in whatever role we need them. And so we have our first person who's officially going through the development program, Cole, who's in a completely different industry and took a leap of faith to come on board with us. And so he's going through this now, training in all aspects of the business, which is really cool. And it's really refreshing, for someone to come in without experience to be able to soak up the marketing side, the technical side, the management side, the sales side. So we're doing that right now as we speak.
That's really cool. I'm really glad that you've been able to take that program and bring it into the new company too. That's going to be really neat to see his journey and then how it grows.
Well, we found so much success doing that in insurance, right? I found over the year, when you first start, it's like, all right, I need to go hire someone who's licensed, who has insurance experience. If they got all state experience, even better. And a lot of times what you learn is people come on, I'm not going to say bad habits, but they've got their own habits on the way they've done things with a previous company. And so where we found the most success is finding someone who, again, has the will, has the ability, has the skill set to succeed. They just need to learn this industry, right? And if we can teach on our processes, right, on how to sell or how to service a customer, how to on the technical side, treat a home, right? As opposed to maybe the way they learned it. It's much easier to start someone without that experience than someone who comes over maybe with 20 years of doing it the same way, right? So.
Yeah. Well, so what would you say, like looking at year 2 versus year 1, what do you feel like has been some of the biggest changes or successes?
I think just sort of building out, our leadership team. When you first start, you are the leadership team. It's just kind of you're on an island, and then you start adding, some key people. like I said, out of all of our team members for all locations, I mean, I'm just truly blessed. And for our interns group too. I mean, we just have just an incredible team. And so, but there's only so many people that, like, for example, I forget which book it comes from, but they talk about, you first start a business, you're a doer, you're doing everything. You're doing that right now. But then now you started to build your team out. So now you're not only are you a doer, but you're also a manager. So
Yeah.
you're a manager and a doer. And at some point you may not be a doer anymore. Your full-time focus is managing. And so what I found is that's happened a lot quicker than I anticipated, where I now sort of have my managers who sort of managing our
Mhm.
team, right? And so that's been really cool. And to see, being our market leaders, and particularly Lee Thompson, our president, take ownership to do things, not because I'm telling them to do it, but because they believe in it, and they're doing it as if it's, the Thompson Pest Control Company or the Ballard Pest Control Company or the Smith or, whatever.
Right.
So that's been really cool, and seeing how they've taken the culture piece of what we've tried to incorporate, and it's trickled down, I mean, throughout the entire organization, which that's hard to do when you're in multiple locations.
Right.
But to see, like, for example, the Gulf Coast, I mean, they're 4 hours away, right? Our team down there. And Isaac's team is a team of about 10 or 12, or I can't remember where we are, but it's like they're, they're mimicking what comes out of my mouth, but I don't have that direct interaction with them, on a day-to-day basis. And so anyway, that's really cool. That's developed a lot from year one to year two.
Mhm.
Obviously, figuring out how to work together as a leadership team, and when you add, key people, that's been a challenge in the very beginning, trying to figure out personalities. But we, like, for example, Lee and Mike and Isaac, some of these guys, they come from sort of a corporate background, and we're running a small business, which is very different than a corporate background. And I love that experience that they bring. And I've been on the corporate side of Allstate, so I know. And but how do we mesh those two ways of kind of not thinking, but just the way we kind of do business, or how business operates.
Right.
So that was a big integration thing in the first year, whereas in year two, I feel like we've kind of hit our stride with a lot of that. And again, I'll give a shout out to EOS, which we've talked about in previous episodes, entrepreneurial operating system, because it's really helped us have an agenda and a structured way of doing that. So that's been pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, there's just there are such special parts of being a small business, right? But there's also parts that are such that the systems and the processes and the way that you communicate and the structure of your teams that you can learn from on more of a corporate level, and how things function really well, and combining those things. And I'm sure it was kind of hard to figure out what's the best combination of that. But I think the fact that y'all could recognize that there are pros to both is a big step as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm in that phase of people shifting in the roles. My role is shifting, my identity, and the company shifting. So I definitely know how that feels. And I know a lot of people who are listening know how that
No
feels.
doubt. And it's hard, it's hard going from when you're the one doing everything in the beginning to, and you've got to learn to delegate, if that's the route you want to go. If you want to be a one-man show or a two-man show, that's perfectly fine, but it looks a lot different than when you have a group of 10 or 20, or
Right.
I can imagine hundreds, right? And so you've got to learn to delegate, or how to duplicate yourself. And I'm trying to remember, I was talking to that with we were talking about this with one of our market leaders, and how I'm in a role in this company, which was very different than the role with our other company, that the evolution of my role. And so trying to figure out, like, where do I need to be hands-on? Where do I need to be hands-off? Where do I need to just get out of my team's way?
Yeah,
And I learned that from some other mentors in the past. Like, if you hire the right people who are very capable and smarter than yourself, which I do, I'm probably the dumbest one in our company. But I've got a lot of smart people around me. And a lot of times, if you can just show them, you don't delegate a task, you delegate responsibility. And they're able to take that responsibility, as long as there's a clear vision and understanding of what it is, and we're both on the same page. With the right people, they can take it and run with it. You don't have to micromanage it. And it's tough if you're a micromanager, right?
Yeah.
And so I've kind of learned to get out of the way. Not that I don't get in the way sometimes, or maybe a lot in their opinion, but I feel like I do a good job of letting them kind of take it and roll with it. And it starts off with having those right people in the seat, right?
Well, I mean, so I just want to stop there because I think you just like dropped some truth bombs. First of all, delegate responsibility, and think of it as delegating responsibility instead of delegating tasks. That's huge. That can change a leader, manager, owner's mindset. That could really change the whole culture of the business. Like that's big. But also the second thing you said was that maybe stop thinking that you need to be the smartest person in the business just because you're the owner, the leader, the founder. But if you start to think that you don't need to be the smartest one, the most knowledgeable one, the most experienced one, that also can completely change the structure of the team and what you can do.
For sure. And again, everybody has different strengths and weaknesses and opportunities, and there's no right or wrong. As long as, we always say, get the right people on the bus, then make sure everyone's in the right seat. So that big part culturally for us is getting obviously on the bus. They match our morals, our goals in life, they're, our core values that we live and breathe. So that's once they're on the bus, but they've got to be in the right seat. And if I'm in a seat, for example, I feel like I'm a pretty good salesman, and I feel like I could get out there immediately tomorrow if I got into sales and make an immediate impact. But is that the right seat I'm supposed to be in? It was when we first opened 2 years ago, but now it's kind of evolved in a different way, right? And being, sort of the visionary for the company, my role is to drive culture and to lay out the vision of where we're going. And if I get caught up in the micro management of the details, then I'm losing focus on what my role is as a visionary, right? The delegate responsibility and not task. I think I learned that. It may have been from Andy Stanley, who has an incredible podcast.
Yeah.
And that really was something that was eye-opening for me. And I may have mentioned this before, but I went on this kick where I think it was about 4 years ago or 5 years ago. My goal, instead of reading all these different business books and development books on different things, I said, I want to develop as a leader, because I knew that I had opportunities to grow there big time.
Yeah.
And part of that was books I was reading, podcasts on leadership, anything having to do with leadership, right? Not managing, but leadership. Right. And that was one of his episodes. And he talked about the delegating responsibility. And an example of that is, instead of going to say, Isaac, down in the Gulf Coast, here's our sales goal. Here's what you need to go do, and here's how you need to do it. It's like, Isaac, here's where we need to be at the end of the quarter from a sales standpoint to hit our goals as a company. Here's some ideas. Let's talk through it, but give him the creativity and the opportunity to use his creativeness and his smarts to go implement that plan. And me over several years, it was me like saying, no, go do this, and that. Because again, I'm a visionary. I feel like I know the steps. But at the end of the day, if he's smart and capable, he may do it a different way. But if we get to the same result, isn't that what we're trying to do?
Right.
So that was really eye-opening about the responsibility part of delegating, I guess.
But I think too, there's an important step in the middle of that is, okay, you've set the vision or the goal. They come up with the plan. You don't just show back up at the very end and see how you did, right? You're there and you're available and you're checking in throughout the process, not to micromanage and do it and tell them how to do it, but just be like, how did that go? And asking those questions. I think that's sometimes we set the goal and then we leave.
And we wonder. And I'm definitely capable. I mean, I'm so guilty of that. And I just look up 90 days later. I'm like, all right, did we do it? And they're like, no. I mean, why not? And I'm like, crap, I haven't checked in with them on this, whether it's something big or just a small project. I'm like, all right, now we need to put in a system to where, I'm checking in so often. And again, going back to EOS is amazing at doing that, where there is some consistent check-ins and, hey, what's working, what's not, if there's an issue, how can we solve it? How can we identify it and solve it and move on? Yeah.
All right. So what would be your last just piece of advice as you think back over these 2 years and what you learned? What do you think? You're like, so
I'm trying to think. There's so many. I mean, wow. So many different things that, again, I don't know if it's advice as much as like, let me share where we really screwed up or where we really struggled. I think, I think breaking down your goals, in 90-day, segments and quarters or whatever, I think is pretty huge. I think that is something that if we had not implemented that structure in the beginning, I don't think we'd be where we are. I think we'd be a little bit more all over the place. And so what I mean by that is, knowing what is your, what is your goal 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What does it look like 3 years from now? And then like, what are we doing this year? But then what can we do in the first quarter of this year? What's the most important thing we need to focus on in the first quarter, the first 90 days of the year? We can't have 20 things, right? Or we can't have the wrong things identified. But what are the top 5 to 7 things that we need to accomplish this quarter? And we just set ours for third quarter, right? And one of ours is looking at our development and training of our inside sales and service team. So, really take it to the next level. We identified that as a critical component where we feel like we can maximize, we talked about this earlier, maximizing the most of that customer experience. So can we train and develop our sales and service internal team better to where they're maximizing that customer instead of just selling a pest service for what they called in? How can we also take care of their mosquito, their termite? And so if we can invest sweat equity, right, into that training, which is hard because we're busy, we're all busy, we're running around, but maybe instead of selling, a customer one service, 100% of the time, maybe we're selling them 2 services 50% of the time. Mm-hmm. So now we've really taken that marketing dollar and stretched it to now have 2 sales as opposed to 1, right? Yeah. And it's not the easy thing to do, the training and taking time to coach and listen to phone calls and, get feedback on how to overcome objections and whatnot. But I would say that's probably one of the most important things, just breaking down your goals in 90-day cycles. Yeah. And just focusing on those 5 to 7, not less, not more, in that little range of what's the most important thing we need to accomplish this quarter, and just going in it, and reviewing it weekly. Are we on pace? Or are we off pace? On pace, off pace. If we're off pace, why are we off pace? What can we do to fix it?
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. I started the end of each year. I'll look back over the calendar. So, we have our goals every 90 days or whatever the time period may be, but it's been really neat to look back over a year and look at every month and say what happened in that month. And you're like, whoa, we have learned a lot. We have done a lot. We might've screwed up.
Right.
We learned it, but it's really neat to look back over that and be like, okay, we're growing. Where do we want to go? It kind of motivates you into the next year. So, and then they don't have time to do that, but it really is worth it.
It is. We can kind of wrap up with this, but looking at, there was one of our rocks, as we call them, our top things we need to prioritize in quarter 1. So this was December of last year, preparing for quarter 1 of 2022. Mm-hmm. We realized that there was a big need for us to get organized on customer communications. Okay. And this is going to sound silly, but it's not a big deal when you're small and you just have 1 or 2 people. But as we've grown in multiple locations, so we send out an email and a text to every customer, hey, your service appointment's coming up. We're going to be there Thursday between 2 and 4. If this doesn't work, please reply back and let us know, right? So when you first start, you may get the occasional reply. I get the email, I take care of it. Well, now, as you can imagine, as you grow, you may get 50 replies that week of people saying that doesn't work or do this. Well, we just had it set up originally when we first started the company 2 years ago to where if someone replied, we just had a rule set up to where that email went to myself and Ryan, and then went to myself, Ryan, and Lee, then went to myself, Ryan, Lee, and Isaac, and then we said, okay, well, once it comes in, whoever can get to it first, just reply all that you took care of it. Well, as you can imagine, if you're getting hundreds of these coming in, what if no one replies all. Like, is there accountability to know if it got taken care of? And so, as silly as that sounds, like we went in and identified that as a not just a weakness. Where then it wasn't a huge deal, it wasn't a huge issue, but going from 3,500 customers to, let's say, hopefully one day is 20,000 or 50,000, whatever it could be, that could really snowball. And so we put in a system to handle that, and there's accountability in place. And if it's just using some technology, and so we that was our focus. That was one of our focuses that quarter, and now we've got it humming. I mean, and if we had not identified that, and we do it 2 years from now, well, we've already, going back to the branding and customer interaction, we've already screwed up a lot of customers' perception just because we weren't organized on it, right?
I think that takes out the overwhelm, though, for the leader who wants to lead, but also the team, is if you can break it down into quarters and say, what are our 1, 2, or 3 things that we're focusing on in this quarter? Yes, we have so many other goals. Yes, there's so much we want to do this year, but what are we focusing on? I've found that was very relieving to actually then get it done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Look, you may not accomplish all 5 to 7 in the first quarter, and you may realize too, after the first 2 weeks, thought it was important, but it's really not, right? But if you're not checking in on those things, how do you really know? So
it's true. Well, this has been so insightful, and I've learned from you, as I always do when we do these interviews, but it's really
what not to do.
No, what you do. But I just congratulate you in the last 2 years and what you've grown with your team and how you've led them. And y'all have accomplished so much in really a short amount of time. So congratulations.
Well, thank you for saying that. And, I know a lot of our team members listen to this. And so I want to give each and every one of them a shout out. And I could not do it without them. They couldn't do it without me. It's a collaborative effort. And, it's pretty cool when we're all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are, and not that we don't have challenges day in, day out. And we get off course sometimes, but we are, we have our eye, on the prize of where we're trying to go. And it's definitely thanks, to our team members and to our customers. So it's good talking to you, and we need to catch up after this. And I want to hear more about your business and what you're doing. It sounds like you got some pretty exciting things going on too.
So many things. It's been good. We'll do it next time.
Sounds good. Well, good catching up with you, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.